Hey everybody, this is Mr. Plunkett, and this is chapter 5, section 5, percents. Okay, so the essential question is, how do I, didn't come out very well, convert between decimals percents and fractions? Okay, and here's the idea is that any value, we've talked about value before, and so just to kind of go over what I mean by that, we talked about how if you have something like 3/5 as a fraction, that has a value that can be determined by dividing the numerator by the denominator. So 3 divided by 5 is 6/10. Okay, so fractions can be converted into decimals, in other words, or turned into their values by dividing. But now we're going to add in a third idea, which is percents. And we're going to figure out how to get from the value of decimal to the percent. We're going to figure out how to get from the fraction to the percent. And this same number, 3/5, 6/10, is also 60%. So if you got 3 out of 5 on like a quiz or something, you would have gotten 60%. And after this lesson, you're going to get a much higher score. So here we go. Key idea. Writing percents as fractions. Okay, a percent is a part to whole ratio where the whole is 100. So you can write a percent as a fraction with the denominator of 100. So for instance, 60% means 60 out of 100, 60 over 100. And so that's the part, 60. And then every per cent, cent actually means 100. You've probably seen that's the case when you think of like cents or centuries, 100 years. So in fact, you can break down this word into two words, per and cent. Per means to divide by, so our fraction bar, and cent means 100. So anytime we want to convert a number into a percent, we want to write it as a ratio where it's a fraction over 100. And that's why 60% is 60 over 100. This actually means per cent. N percent would be N over 100. If we jump into some examples, I think it's going to start to make a lot of sense to you. So let's start with this first one, which says, how do I write a percent in simplest form? I think it meant as a fraction in simplest form, but we'll just forego that I forgot that. Okay, write 35% as a fraction in simplest form. Okay, 35%. I hope that's a clue. 35%. Well, every percent, per means divided by, and cent means 100. So this is really 35, the part, out of 100, which is the whole. Now, if we're writing this in simplest form, the fraction is in simplest form, we need to divide both 35 and 100 by the greatest common factor, preferably, in order to get the most simple version of this fraction. So I think it's 5, so 35 divided by 5 is 7. And 100 divided by 5 is 20, so there's no other number that we can divide by. So 35% would be like if you got a 7 out of 20 on a test. Okay? All right, now, next one. Write 174% as a mixed number in simplest form. So it's the same thing. Because there's the percent symbol, we're just going to write that as 174%. I should write the whole thing out. Is equal to, the part is 174 out of the per cent out of 100. Now, what's weird about this one, I guess, is because the numerator is greater than the denominator, so you get this improper fraction, but that's fine. You can get 174% on a test. Just say it was an ABCs test and you knew some Greek letters and boom, you got 174%. This can still be simplified though, right? So we would write that as 1 and 74 over 100. And then we could further simplify 74 and 100. My guess is that 2 is the greatest common factor of those two. So it's going to be something, and then 50 in the denominator. Dividing that by 2, 7 divided by 2 is 3 with 1 left over. 14, 2 goes into 14 7 times. So I think, and I didn't write that great, but it's 1 and 37 50ths. Whoa. Okay, what does that look like modeled, right? Now let's look at these models. Going back to the 7/20ths or 35%, we have each column is 10, so we have 35 out of 100 total. That makes sense, that's 35%. For 174%, you actually have an entire 10 by 10 grid, one hole already filled out, then you have 74 out of 100, which is where we got that, and then we just reduced that to 1 and 37 out of 50. And just to show you this kind of cool thing, a percent symbol is actually a play on a fraction and the number 100. So you have the fraction bar right here, but it's also like 100. So you can think of that as a fraction bar. And then you can also think of it as the number 1, right? Which is also the number 1. Didn't work. 1. Okay, and then 2 zeros, and that's why you get a divided by 100. So once again, that means fraction bar, and then it's 100. So divided by 100. Remember that the word percent means divide by 100. To write a percent as a fraction, just write the numerical part of the percent. Don't write the percent symbol over what? Well, see, we got rid of the percent symbol because that became divided by 100. And then we don't forget to reduce the fraction. All right, that's the end of part 1 for this section, and then I'll be back with part 2.